Welcome back to Leaders of Healthcare. I'm your host, Shredskind. Now, in today's video, we sit down with Kalaii Griffin. Kalaii has been a friend of mine for many years, and specifically, I wanted to bring him onto the podcast for a variety of reasons. Most notably, one of his recent successes was he was able to secure successful investment from Mark Cuban on Shark Tank ABC. And his business specifically is called ShredSkinz. It takes a concept which a lot of athletes were already using plastic bags to sweat more and lose more weight in the gym. But he was able to create a more professional version of that product called ShredSkinz. And obviously working with Mark Cuban, he was able to successfully scale the business with many athletic teams. Being a previous professional football player, he's going to be able to talk a lot about self-care, his approach to healthcare, and how he made another business, a for-profit business, that also serves a purpose for driving public health. So I think he's very passionate about what he does, and I think his personal and professional story is something that we can all learn a lot of gems from. Without further ado, let me introduce you to Kalaii, and our convo is just so much fun, and let's get into it. Now, like every week, we have a fantastic guest today. His name is Kalaii Griffin. He's the CEO of ShredSkinz, and he's also been on Shark Tank, and he got to deal with Mark Cuban. Now, and I'm very excited to also bring him on from my network to have him join our podcast because I know his story personally is going to inspire so many individuals out there. And without further ado, let's welcome him to the show and get it started. So, Kalaii, it's always a pleasure. How are you doing today?
Perfect, Shree. Thank you so much. I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. I appreciate being here, and I love, just the definition of intrapreneur and entrepreneur. It's really interesting the way you put that because there's definitely a lot of similarities there, and I feel like it's definitely undervalued. So I appreciate you shedding light on that as well. But everything is good. Everything is good on this Sunday. How are you?
I'm good. And so, Kalaii, tell the people a little bit about yourself. I know you're an athlete entrepreneur. You have a vast history. So I would love to, shed some light on your background.
No, for sure. I'm definitely, still athletic, but definitely not an athlete no more. I roll out of bed and my back hurts now. It's crazy. But for the past few years, played football, but I wouldn't say that's the start of my story. A little bit about me. Born in, Springfield, Massachusetts, ended up moving to Montgomery County, Maryland. Raised half of my life by my father, and the other half of my life by my sisters. All entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs. That's why I love the way that you word that, right? Always striving for innovation. As I moved through Maryland and found the sport of football, I ended up playing at the University of Texas, El Paso, UTEP, where I met my lovely wife and had my son while playing football. Ended up having an okay career. Completely crushed my pro day. And for people that don't watch football, that's the one shot you get, the one interview you get in front of NFL players or NFL coaches. But I ended up breaking my arm my senior year. So that pro day, despite me having an amazing day, I didn't have the film that backed it up. And the reason why I bring that up is because it led me to this business, right? And led me to who I am today. Ended up stumbling. That's the best word I could put it. Mm-hmm. Stumbling upon a business that ended up, being on Shark Tank and getting a deal with Mark Cuban. So I'm a father, husband, entrepreneur, and intrapreneur, and I'm just happy to take every day for what it is and continue to grow my business and take it to where I know where it could be in the next couple of years.
It's exceptional. I appreciate that, Clay. And can you talk a little bit about that as we kind of progress through the podcast? I'd love to discuss what brought you to Shark Tank, right? Why did you even decide to go for seed funding on Shark Tank? And then how's that partnership been with Mark Cuban? I'd be curious to know.
For sure. So obviously, a lot of entrepreneurs, if you were an entrepreneur that watches Shark Tank, your goal, your NFL is Shark Tank, right? And so I've always strived to be on it. I'm very big on manifestation. And so it's interesting when I was living with my mother-in-law and my son, we were all in her house and, didn't have no money. I was fresh out of college, trying to figure out if I wanted to play professional ball because I had the same energy that I have with ShredSkinz. I was like, I will be in the NFL, right? I didn't have no plan B. But I eventually needed to make some money, right? So I ended up working for a pretty big warehouse. And there I used to work the overnight shift, and I would come home around 6:15 a.m. and I would throw on an episode of Shark Tank, and I'd watch it for an hour and try to go to bed around like 7 to 8, right? Watch 1 or 2 episodes. And I would treat it like a film study. I would treat it like football, right? One, probably because it connected me to football, but then also because I just had that mindset of, this is where I want to be. And if I'm going to do it, I need to be properly prepared. And I feel like, execution, or luck is like where, preparation, meets hard work, right? Like that opportunity. So I was like, if I'm gonna manifest, if I'm going to one day be on Shark Tank, I would be a fool to not properly prepare and watch and learn from other people's mistakes. And so the idea just stemmed from that. Watching Shark Tank after I got off of work, it was a huge motivation, and I'll never forget it. I remember that time. I say like maybe like midweek, I had off at night. I'm sitting with my wife and we're watching Shark Tank again, and I just grabbed the computer and I applied. And basically, I texted my partner and I said, "Yeah, I applied for Shark Tank," and he was like, "Damn, you move fast." And I'm just like, well, look, they're either going to tell me no or they're going to tell me yes. And to skip the process, because I can't necessarily speak on the process, obviously, eventually I got on, and that led me to be able to have that opportunity to get in front of the people that I've been manifesting and working hard to get in front of. Fortunate enough to get a deal from Mark Cuban. Please watch the episode. I got a couple other offers as well. But got a deal with Mark Cuban, and everything has been amazing. Right. And so I would say the biggest, description of, or I would say the most important detail to our relationship is just what I've been learning, because, things are a journey. Right. And so, you get excited and you make a deal on Shark Tank, and you're like, okay, let's sell 100 million ShredSkinz. And it's like, hold on, let's take a step back. Let's figure out how to properly run your business, right? You're dealing with a guy like Mark Cuban, multi-billionaire. You want to listen, right? And so it's a fine line of like knowing your business and having your gut instinct, but listening, when you're getting some advice that, millions and millions of people can't get. So the relationship has been awesome. Mark responds extremely fast. It's the craziest thing ever. And then he also has a team that could help him as well, or help us as well if we need. But the cool thing about me and the cool thing about Mark is Mark's like that dad that's like, he's going to be there for you, but he's also striving and pushing independence. And so I have a team of my own. We do what we need to do. And if I need Mark, he's there. And we'll have some things planned and coming in the upcoming future for sure.
I appreciate you sharing that. And how has it been, right? After leaving Shark Tank, you've gotten the deal, you're working with Mark. Maybe you could share a little bit more about what's your day-to-day look like, right? What are the plans for ShredSkinz? And I realize for the viewers and listeners, we haven't talked about what is ShredSkinz. So can you talk about that a little bit, share a little description of the product? I think it's very unique, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So ShredSkinz is interesting, right? Very, very innovative, but also very simple. And so when I was on the show, I had a moment where I essentially was like, you may think this is silly, right? And why is because ShredSkinz is a single-use sauna suit, right? That's eco-friendly. The first single-use sauna suit that's also eco-friendly, right? Both. It doesn't exist, right? There's not one single-use sauna suit that's not eco-friendly, and that made it eco-friendly. Is the only first single-use sauna suit out on the market today. Eventually, we'll get knocked off. Cool, I understand, but we are the first. Okay. And the concept essentially came from that time around where I was working overnights when I was trying to figure out if I was trying to play football, and I was using trash bags, right? And under the kitchen sink. And my mother-in-law would be like, stop using the trash bags because I'm buying these and they're like gone by the end of 2 weeks. And then I would go to like your nearby retail store, or department store or whatever, and I would buy these reusable sauna suits, right? Which would work, right? Just like the trash bag would work. But one, I didn't want to keep poking holes in trash bags. I didn't want to keep using my trash bags. I didn't even want to wear a trash bag, right? It's for the trash, okay? And then two, I'm buying these reusable sauna suits that are like 25 to $110 now, right? That would end up ripping on me anyway. And we were in prime COVID, where this was a time where people were wiping down groceries and going to the grocery store with hazmat suits on. So I didn't want to wear the same sweaty suit in the gym, have to try to hand clean it because you can't throw it in the washer. And if you don't clean and dry it properly, you might get a rash. I was like, why isn't there a combination here? Why isn't there a single use sauna suit? And it didn't exist. And so where ShredSkinz comes in is we have an innovative single-use sauna suit with elastic around the wrist, elastic around the waist, drawstring on the hood, comes in multiple different colors, and it's a brand. It's a brand now. People love our product. They're a part of our family. They're on that sweat team of just shedding that water weight, from fighters to bodybuilders to everyday people to athletes, basketball players, football players. People love, one, the ability to see their sweat, but they also, two, for an example, in the use case of a fighter, they need to shed that water weight before they get in the ring, right? You want to shed a few pounds, you want to shed some water weight before your wedding, to get in your wedding dress, ShredSkinz. If you have a competition coming up, bodybuilding, ShredSkinz. If you have a fight coming up, ShredSkinz. If you're just starting your fitness journey and you want to see your sweat and you want to feel like you're heating up your core temperature, ShredSkinz. And so a lot of people are finding it useful in different situations, and it's just become an internet sensation, via TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of how everything grew, and that's what ShredSkinz is.
I love that, and I love that you're talking about community because, that's something we always talk about is building community through your marketing. Can you talk a little bit more about that, because I know you're big on social media as well, and it's about building a community behind the brand, right? It's not just about a single transaction. It's thinking about the lifetime value of the customer, building a relationship, building a trusting relationship with them, your product, making sure that every time they buy from you, they're getting something that they can rely on. I'm curious about your philosophy on that as well, because I'm sure we share a little bit of the similar thinking there in
Yeah,
branding.
just to answer that question, right, without going down a rabbit hole on like everything that relates to customer relationship and brand, I will say it's probably the most important, right? I mean, you can use multiple different products that have a really good product. They end up getting knocked off, or somebody ends up finding it cheaper. And then next thing you know, that brand is gone, right? That's one of the biggest fears from all entrepreneurs. So one of the biggest things that from the beginning that I knew that I needed to do was build a community of ShredSkinz family, right? Team Sweat, Sweat Fam, right? Shred heads. I mean, mind you, like these aren't hashtags that are viral, but my point is, because of the videos that go viral, because of the relationships that I try to individually make with some of my top affiliates, which is a very key piece in building a community, is paying people to wear your stuff. I found that building a brand is probably the most important, right? I mean, scaling is important, obviously. Selling your product is important. But if you don't have a brand, if you don't have something that people feel like, I can't go without the ShredSkinz, I can't go without my Starbucks, I can't go without, my Amazon Prime. I mean, mind you, that's a very strong two to compare me to. But my point is, like, this is how they were thinking in the beginning, right? It's like, I have to build something where people can't go a week without it, right? They can't go a week without feeling that ShredSkinz heat up their core temperature, and making them sweat and seeing that sweat. And so organically, we didn't run ads for maybe 75% of our career here, like at
Wow,
ShredSkinz.
that's surprising.
We just, yeah, we haven't ran one ad, and I think we tried it for like 3-4 months, and then we realized like the customer acquisition is just nuts. This was right after the switch of iOS and Facebook, so it just wasn't working. And we're just now starting to run them again because we have so much organic and UGC content that we're like, okay, let's just put a boost behind it. And we're not even running ads on all platforms. But without going down a rabbit hole there, like I was saying, I mean, just organically from the beginning, I knew I needed to get product in people's hands, right? I wasn't worrying about the sales. It was more so, okay, how many people do I know personally that have an influence right, to other people, right? So when you think influencer, right, a lot of people get it confused and they think of it by like a monetized value of okay, they have to have a blue check mark or 100,000 followers, where it's like that's not true. Some of my biggest affiliates are just everyday women that just have a influence over other women, right? 5, 6, 10,000 followers. And I found that early, that's what I needed to hone into. So it all ties back into answering the question of brand, right? Like brand is so important, and how can I expand that? Well, I give people an incentive, right? So, everyday people that are working a job or working out anywhere and showing their weight loss and showing their transitions. Well, hey, by the way, do you want to get paid for that? Like anybody that buys the ShredSkinz that you're using, let's cut you 10, 5, 15, 20% on the back end. And that's how our brand built pretty fast.
Building a community is very important in getting that. Really the gold of what you're talking about is user generated content, right? People who are so in love with your product that they're, recording themselves taking pictures of your product and just posting that out. It's like free marketing, as they say. But although it's a calculated move, right, as well, right? How do you promote that? Are you putting something in your slips or in your packaging to say, hey, hashtag this when you post it, or take a picture of this and tag us and we'll put you in some sort of contest. So I think there's ways to kind of growth hack that as well. Big thing that we've been seeing a lot of success on in e-commerce is loyalty programs, right? Kind of like Starbucks rewards. That's been a huge push. But I love that you're so big on saying it's not always about paid advertising, and you're actually looking for those micro influencers and looking for starting almost a grassroots movement that way, right? And I think that's been so attributed to your success thus far. So then, Kalaii, just to take a little transition, what's your day to day like? Right now, you've built this brand. You're now going to the next level. Are you focusing on product and innovation? Are you looking at doubling down on marketing? What's the day to day look like? Are you focused on building your team? Just curious.
Yeah, so just recently, I would say, for about a month, my main focus was building a team, or expanding on my team. I have an amazing team, right? And the approach that I took was kind of just saying like grassroots, right? And the approach that I took was around, I'd say 2021, where it was just me. I was like, okay, this is getting to the point where I need to expand on this. I had an ad team that we just stopped, just like I was saying. This is right around that time where the iOS flipped. And I was like, okay, it's just me, but I need to find someone to help me post on the daily, right? Just post, right? Because there's rules on Instagram and TikTok that you need to follow, right? Whether that's timing, or the frequency of posting. And I needed someone to essentially help me with that, right? And so I ended up finding this girl named Jaden. Her and at the time she didn't have like an agency, right? But Jaden was just one of those people who, and I'm dropping her name because she's amazing. And, she's just one of those people that just wanted to come in and learn and just appreciated the brand. I mean, literally started off at $50 a month. $50 a month. I was like, look, I don't have much. By 2021 we had sales, but like I didn't have enough to pay people like full salaries. I was just like, listen, if you trust me, eventually you'll get to the point where you're getting paid money, like good money. But for right now, I just need you to post once a day on TikTok and Instagram for me, right? And then it was like, okay, eventually I just need you to do customer support. My point is, today we have about a team of 9. Jaden is probably our only, full-time employee because, she's doing everything that we said before. I've taught her so much about the game of entrepreneurship, the marketing of social media. So she runs our Instagram. She runs our customer support, and essentially manages, a portion of the team. We have, someone else on our team that runs our Facebook, our YouTube, our Twitter. We have someone else that runs our LinkedIn, and organization. We have a ad team, right? We have a campaign mailer team, right? Like, and then we have an Amazon team that we're trying to, not trying, we are going to roll out in the next couple of weeks, which is just so crazy to think about, right? So rolling out to Amazon next couple of weeks, we have a TikTok ad team member. So we have both Facebook, Instagram, then we have TikTok separate. So we have a solid bunch, and that really happened maybe like within this last month. I would say 1, 2, 3, for five out of the nine, you know, came this past like 2 months, right? Because think about it, I just aired on Shark Tank. I needed to start finding people that had like mind, like Jaden, right? Like, listen, I'm not going to pay you a crazy amount, right? I'm coming to you because I know you and I trust you. And do you want to be a part of this growth? And one day we will get you to that point. But instead of hiring like a full-on marketing team that's not understanding my creativity and vision, every morning I talk to my team, right? We're in a group, messaging, right? So every morning, everybody's communicating. Everybody knows me personally. Everybody knows my story. And I think that is just so important, right? And so speaking on the day to day, that was my like main goal for the past couple of months. One of the other biggest things, I read, as much as I can. And, this book, Discipline is Destiny, they talk about like why people have anxiety, and it's just organization. So one of the biggest things that I say in my day to day is just trying to be more organized, and just essentially like having certain places for certain things, right? So my Google Drive, like I said, the person that runs our LinkedIn also runs organization. Even though the guy that runs our YouTube, Twitter, and God, on Facebook, he ended up organizing our Google Drive. But our Google Drive is organized, right? 3 years, damn near 3 years of stuff now organized, right? I have a checklist, right? That me and Jaden, because Jaden's like, if you want to call her my executive assistant as well, you can. She manages customer support, she manages Instagram, and like the Shopify integrations, all that good stuff. But she's like my executive assistant, right? Like, so me and Jaden have a checklist. So I'm every day like, okay, this is what I need to do, or this is what I need to get to this week. That's huge, right? So like that falls into my day to day. I'd say maybe like once a day, I probably have some type of connection, right? And how I label connection is just someone that I want to either connect with, or they want to connect with me with no essentially value of like money, right? More so like, hey, I want to connect with you on this level, just to be connected. Okay. And I probably have one of those meetings maybe like once every other day. And I have an opportunity meeting probably like once every other day, right? And what that is either like a new software, maybe someone wants me to be on, their podcast. Maybe somebody wants me to fly out and do a collab. Maybe somebody wants to switch my warehouse. Maybe somebody wants to switch my marketing. And I don't take matter of fact, I don't take 9 out of the 10, emails that come in as far as like any opportunity, right? Because I have a team. I have a really good warehouse system. I have good marketing. But there is a couple times where I look at it, and I always look through everything. And so I just recently bought a software, an AI software that, without giving too much detail, an AI software that, and when I say I bought, I mean like I bought the service, right? I didn't buy the AI software, but I bought the service of this team that basically has a ridiculous way to increase your abandoned cart rates. I mean, you're talking about like 40 times. And I believe it. And I believe it because I've seen what they're doing. And so like, I'm glad that I took a look at that email. Right. And then just a couple months ago, I bought a software that's almost like a Slack. I know everybody knows what Slack is. Kind of like, I just bought a software that essentially allows me to see what my team is doing, when they're doing it. It puts all of our platforms in one, kind of like a Zendesk. It's called Gorgeous. And it's pretty big. So they're not like high five to me for shouting them out. I mean, they're huge, but like Gorgeous was just like great for our team. And my point is like, I will come across these opportunities where people will pitch me like, here's why you should use us. And sometimes I'll hear it out. Sometimes I won't hear it out. And sometimes I'll buy it. Aside from that, I'm always monitoring, what's going on our social medias. I'm always kind of looking for a new collab. Always, still to this day, as a CEO, I got a team of 7 to 9 people. I'm always looking at who I can connect with, who in the fighting world I can bring on, as someone that's using ShredSkinz. How can I continue to grow? And then I'd say I definitely have like 1 to 2 internal team meetings a day as well. I travel a lot, for in-person collabs. I travel a lot for in-person podcasts, meetings, video vlogs, content. which will be the major focus in these next couple of months. Just like a lot of different new fresh content, a lot of me, and not just sweat dumps. But I would say, you know, the biggest thing is like finding balance, right? And one of the most, you know, I guess most important, and what takes the most time is just being a dad and a husband as well. It's tough trying to balance both, and trying to balance that ability to run a business, not feel like you're abandoning your business, but also feel like you're not abandoning your family. I hate to sound dramatic, but like, if my son wants to, hey dad, can you play with me? And I'm like, hold on, man, like, let me finish this email. It hurts, it hurts. Or if I say yes to him, it hurts. Like, would you know, XYZ billionaire do that? I don't know. So, just finding that balance. So that's kind of my day to day. One of my, just to finish up on that question, one of my biggest tips is give 101%, because nobody would ever admit that they're giving 99%. So I was like, well, let's just save the debate here and we'll just say 101%, right? Give 100% into your business, but take that extra 1% to worry about like your mental health, your family, your friends, and your.
It's perfect. Clay, you're always an open book. It's true to your personality, so I appreciate you doing that for our audience here too. I think it's a perfect segue because as we've talked about business, and I think we've covered so much gems just in that. So once again, thank you for being transparent. Transitioning a little bit to the self-management. You touched upon it. I know you're a passionate father, right, to Clay the third, and I'd love to, most people don't talk about it enough, right? For entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs, of how do you actually manage a successful business life with the other requirements and commitments in life, right? You have mental health, physical health, relationships, personal development, just having fun, right? You touched upon a discipline as well, and having discipline to reduce anxiety. I'm also a proponent of that. And, how you do one thing is how you do everything, right? So I'm curious, how do you manage and all these different facets of your life? Whatever philosophy you have, maybe it's a strategy, maybe it's a discipline. I think the audience could benefit.
Yeah. So, I mean, just real quick, discipline, right? And so, like, we're all striving to master that discipline. And one of my good friends, AJ Hotchkins, I look at him like a brother and also like a mentor. It's weird, right? Like saying that because we're very close in age. We have like different paths, but a lot of the things that he says just resonate, right? And that stems from experience and reading. And the dude is just like a pool of wisdom. And I remember I told him the other day, I was like, once I master discipline, I'm gonna get a big tattoo like of discipline. Like he's like, man, I don't think anyone like masters discipline. And like I was thinking about it, and I'm like, damn, I mean that's kind of true, right? Like you hear about the greats, and they probably didn't master discipline, right? But there's nothing wrong with striving to get as close to it as possible, right? And so I'd say, to balance it, you have to be organized, right? And so I deal with anxiety and stress just like everybody else, right? Obviously, I feel like there's different levels to stress and anxiety. But the more organized I am and the more I am prepared for the day, like very similar to a fight, very similar to a football game, you have to be prepared, right? Like the more you're prepared, the less anxious you are. And so you have to, not a lot of people are fortunate enough to play at the collegiate level of sports or play at the professional or even amateur level of fighting, or fight at that level. But if you put yourself in a fight or flight game time decision, right? What would you rather be? Prepared or not prepared, right? Period, right? If you had your back up against the wall and you're trying to protect your family, and there's someone trying to harm what's yours, would you rather be prepared for it or not prepared? It's very simple. And that's how you have to attack the day, right? The day is the challenge. The day is the enemy. How do I attack it? And that's being prepared for it, right? So balancing it and trying to stay disciplined is the number one goal, but also just preparing for what you have to do. And that is be organized, right? That is, I need to wake up and do this at this time, right? I need to do this at this time. But having the ability to pivot if it doesn't go the way you want to. But the cool thing is you already prepared for that, right? So it's like, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. If this doesn't happen, I'm going to do this. And if this doesn't happen, I'm going to do this, right? Just be strategic in everything you do, and you prevent that anxious feeling of what if this happens. It's like, no, I already got a plan for it, right? So I'm relaxed, I'm cool, I'm not stressing. And so that's kind of how I balance it. And it's also, very important to have an important partner. My wife is amazing. I wouldn't be here without her. And she, just allows me to have the ability to be creative in my own mind, and to have the time to do things like, for an example, this, right? My son's out there banging away playing. Of course he wants to play with me. He's a daddy's boy. But she allows me to have this time and be able to do it. And I think it's very important to have a strong partner in your corner. But if you don't, that's okay. You just need to be able to be disciplined in your plan and how it works for you.
Before we round out, and obviously I want to know how the audience can get in touch with you, but obviously you're the CEO of ShredSkinz, right? So I want to know, and I think the audience would be curious as well, since we're talking about self-management of your health and fitness routine, and how are you utilizing ShredSkinz in your own routine? I think it'd be valuable to talk about.
No, for sure. So ShredSkinz is the shiznit, if I could say that on the radio. It's awesome, man. Like I came up with it because I was using it. My father did martial arts all his life. So in return, I did martial arts all my life, up until high school, until I found football. And I say that because the way I use my ShredSkinz, is when I fight, or roll jujitsu. I'm not a professional fighter. I don't want to be. I'm like 245 pounds, but I'm like 6'1". So if you watch UFC, you would know that I have no business getting in there with the heavyweights. But I use my ShredSkinz to just shed some water weight when I need to, right? Very similar to how I feel like anybody should use it. I remember, obviously I run a business, so it's a little hard for me to work out every day. I still do, right? It's about organizing and planning and prioritizing. But I'll say, like, when I was doing nothing but working out, I couldn't go without a ShredSkinz. I couldn't go without something that was heating up my core temperature. So how I use it now, one, is to put it out there at a gym if I'm going to a new gym, just full transparency, right? And then two, like, I'd use it in a gym and people see this giant sweat sack and they're like, who is this? Well, hey, like, let me tell you who I am, and let me tell you who the business is, right? Because I think we're past the point of like me trying to get it out there. I'm a firm believer in like social media, right? I'd rather do that. I'd rather do social media than go to like 1,000 gyms across the nation. You know what I mean? So it's just more efficient on social media. But also just like using it when I roll or hit the bag, because that's essentially like how it's sparked. Fighters need it, and so personally, that's what works for me. And that's the cool thing about ShredSkinz, right? I've seen people use it while they clean their house. I've seen people use it while they clean their garage, cut the grass. I used to do that, cut the grass with ShredSkinz on, right? Because you're getting a workout in, you're heating up the core temperature of your body, shedding some water weight. And so it's whatever you want to do it, and however you want to do it. But me personally, I throw it on, tuck it in under a hoodie, and I'll hit the bag a little bit, get some rolling in under my rash guard, and that's how I like it.
I appreciate that. Okay. And, that was more for the audience more than anything else, right? Because they're always curious, how's the CEO actually using the product now that it's huge? Hey, look, Kalaii, it's always a pleasure talking to you.
Love the messages that I've been receiving after Shark Tank. If you haven't watched the episode, please watch it. I was very vulnerable on there, shared my story in a deep way. So appreciate the messages.
Awesome, Kalaii. All right. It's always a pleasure.